Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to learn about the safe and efficient use of your wood-burning fireplace. This program is possible today thanks to our Estes Valley Fire Protection District, the Town of Estes Park, and the Estes Valley Library. We appreciate you all taking interest in this really important subject. And from here, I'll take it off to Joe.
Thanks, Barb. Joe.
My pleasure.
Thanks for all your work getting it set up.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
All right.
As you see up there, my name's Jon Landkamer, Division Chief of Support Services with the Fire District. Just a little bit about me. I've been around Estes since 1986. Spent most of my career at YMCA of the Rockies. Spent about 6.5 years with the Town of Estes and almost a year with the Fire District already.
All right.
So for 31 years of that, I was a volunteer firefighter and just transitioned to this position a year ago. So that's a really brief history of me. My experience at the Y, I was in the maintenance of buildings and grounds department, so I have a lot of maintenance background. So I guess that may be a good fit for this talk, maintenance and fire, right? So we're gonna go through this real quick. Well, maybe not real quick, but please, if you have any questions, you have any comments, I don't consider myself an expert on this. I tried to become an expert before today, but if you have any other suggestion, comments, let's talk about it, okay? So it can be as interactive as you want it to be. So I did kind of an outline of what we're going to talk about. First, just a little bit about Estes Fire. We'll talk about proper selection of the appliances, how to select and store your wood that you're going to use, and talk a little bit about maintenance of your appliance. Okay, and we'll summarize all that. And you'll see it throughout the program. I went to the EPA Burnwise site. Plethora of information there. I would really recommend, if you have any questions after this, which you probably will, specifically maybe about what you use in your home, go to the EPA Burnwise site. Really, really great information. Really well done website. Tons of videos, tons of other stuff. So what does the Estes Valley Fire Protection District do? We fulfill our mission, and you can see our mission up there, and that includes not only fire fighting, fire protection, it includes prevention, emergency services. So we're considered an all-hazard fire protection district. Somebody has a problem, they don't know who to call, they call us. So that's a way to kind of summarize it. We'll do pretty much whatever's asked of us, right? Okay, what we need to do. So as a district, we only have 8 full-time employees that support up to around 40 volunteers. Okay, so we're still a primary volunteer response agency. Questions about the district? Okay, let's jump into it. Talk about the different types of appliances, okay? This lists them all from the Burnwise website. So regular fireplaces, wood stoves, hydronic heaters, which I didn't know people did, a wood-fired boiler, have hot water baseboard heat in your house. That sounds like a challenge in a cold environment. Forced air furnaces, wood-fired. I had no idea until I went to the Burnwise website. You could get a forced air furnace that's wood-fired. So a lot of this stuff we won't see up here. We'll spend most of our time talking about wood stoves because I think that's really, wood stoves and fireplaces, that's the majority of what you're going to see in our valley. But also list some of the other things that can be used to help heat your house. Gas stoves, meaning a gas fireplace, not a gas stove in your kitchen. Just making sure. All right, so selecting your appliance. Many of you probably already have an appliance. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I think the wood stoves are probably the most common around here for people that heat their homes with wood. Fireplaces are really not all that effective for heating your home unless they were designed and built to do that. And that's pretty rare to have one that's actually does a good job of transferring heat back into the residence. Most of that heat's going up the chimney with a fireplace, but a wood stove's designed to heat your home. Does that make sense? Okay. So one of the big things with the Burnwise website is your appliance EPA certified? Okay. And there's several ways to find out if it is. One other thing I want to notice on the fireplaces, and I just added in some notes there, is make sure that you're only burning firewood. You're not burning cardboard, plastic, any other trash. They're intended for firewood, kindling. clean newspaper to help start the fire, and that's it. A really bad idea to burn cardboard in either types, your wood stove or your fireplace. It can create issues, and cardboard will float and move and go places you don't want it to go while it's still burning. So not a good idea to burn cardboard. Okay? So this was also on the EPA Burnwise site. It's kind of hard to see, it's kind of busy. I couldn't find a version of it that didn't have all the lines on it. What it really boils down to find out if your wood stove is EPA certified, is a single door with glass. You can follow that one down. It might be certified, or if it has 1 to 4 pipes with small holes or a catalytic device in the ceiling or the back of the firebox. Okay, and if it's EPA certified, it should have a tag that tells you it's EPA certified.
Would you say that most of the wood stoves that are sold on a commercial basis are EPA certified after a certain date?
There is a certain date for that. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I remember seeing that on their website.
1990.
Is it 1990?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah, I didn't remember that date, but yes.
Okay.
Okay. And basically what that's doing is designed then to burn cleaner.
Sure.
And to burn more efficiently, so it gets that complete combustion that you're looking for to reduce that smoke output. Okay. So really important to look at that. And again, we're going to watch a quick video because this summarized it pretty well, a lot better, I think, than I can summarize it. It talks about how to use your wood stove.
Do you see soot on the door of your wood stove, smoke coming out of your chimney, wood still in the firebox at the end of the long burn, or no hot coals? Then I have some tips for you. Hi, I'm Charlie Quayle. I'm a certified chimney sweep, and I'm here today to help you learn how to burn a long-lasting, efficient fire in your wood stove. First of all, no matter what kind of stove you have, you need to start with good, dry, seasoned wood. To dry and season your wood, it should be split, stacked, covered, and stored. A moisture meter will tell you if the wood is ready to burn. For an accurate reading, test freshly split wood. The moisture content should be below 20%. Dry wood produces more heat and less smoke and less creosote. For a hotter, longer lasting fire, burn harder wood species. Use large pieces of wood. 4 to 6 inch wedges are a good choice since they take longer to burn. Use smaller pieces of dry kindling as a base to get your fire started. Keep a bed of ash 1 to 2 inches deep in the bottom of the firebox. The ash will insulate the hot coals long after your fire has gone out. Hot coals will make restarting your fire much easier. It'll keep the flue warm to ensure a good draft. When loading, leave space between the pieces of wood to allow air to circulate. Without this space, the fire will smolder, provide less heat, and create more smoke. Your burn time will depend on the size of your firebox and how much wood you can put in it. When starting your fire, adjust the air control to high airflow to quickly ignite your fire and get it up to temperature. Check your stovepipe thermometer or wait 15 to 20 minutes and turn the air down to low. This will provide a clean, long burn. With a hybrid stove or a secondary combustion stove with air tubes, you should see flames in the firebox. If you don't, provide more air. You should see flames in your firebox until the tail end of your fire. With a catalytic stove, be sure your catalyst is active or at 550 degrees Fahrenheit or hotter. For an old stove, do not damper down all the way, because you will end up with a smoldering fire with little heat and lots of smoke. With any type of stove, if you see smoke coming out of your chimney, it's a sign of wasted wood heat. If you see smoke, try turning up the airflow to increase the heat output of your stove to reduce the smoke. If you still have smoke, this could be a sign that your wood is just too wet. Follow these long burn tips to maximize heat and efficiency while minimizing smoke. For more tips, go to epa.gov/Burnwise.
Any questions about that video?
Can you explain the difference between a catalytic wood stove and a non-catalytic?
Great question. No, I can't.
Okay.
I didn't study it that deep.
Yeah.
And all truth be told, I haven't had wood burning appliance in my house for 30 years, so I'm not an active wood burner. I would assume you can find that in EPA Burnwise website. And
I
again,
believe there's a breather tube that goes across the front, and there are tubes behind the fire stones in the stove itself. And
Yeah.
I think it has something to do with that.
My stove has like 4 tubes in it.
Okay.
And I actually have another buck stove in a house in Missouri, which was pre-85, and there's nothing in it. It's just an open box. There may be some fire brick in it.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you look kind of up in the top,
Right.
they're just, it's kind of amazing to watch it. They're just tubes that are stuck through and open at the end, and they have holes in it.
Yep, yep.
And when you get the fire up to a certain temperature and shut it down, and shut the airflow down, and you start seeing that blue flame in it, you look up under there, and there's actually jets of blue flame coming out the holes in those tubes, because it's reburning the gases that were produced
Yeah, that's what I
by
was
the
thinking,
fire,
yeah, okay.
So I think if you don't see those tubes, I don't know that there are other, I didn't investigate enough to know if there are other types of catalytic converters, but that's the converter, because it's gonna reburn those gases rather than put them out into the environment. It's kinda neat to see it, really.
yeah, thank you for that. That's a great explanation of it. I know in my research, they were talking about looking for that device, that it could be up in the ceiling too, or there might be one that's more flue
Yeah, with mine,
specific
you know,
than firebox.
if you didn't know it was there, you've gotta get down
Yeah.
and be able to look right up into the top of it,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, we've got one as well, and if you put a log in there wrong, you can bump it.
Yeah.
And one end will come out a little bit, but yeah, okay, I just wanted to double check.
Yeah. So for me, the big takeaways on that is the airflow is really critical, and how your stove operates, as well as the wood is really critical on making sure it's seasoned. And again, the catalytic device is gonna help it burn more, cleaner, more efficiently, to help prevent some of that smoke output. So, thank you for that. That was great. Oops. So, talk a little bit about selection of the wood, and I mentioned it in the video, but harder woods burn hotter and slower, so that's a good choice for heating. And I know that's hard to find around here, so you pay a premium to get harder woods in here. Pine it burns faster, but it doesn't burn as hot. And there's also that pitch or that sap that's in the pine, particularly around here, that contributes to needing to maintain your wood stove frequently. One thing just splitting the wood prior to storing it is really important. So that's a good tip in there for how you store it. And some of these things I didn't really realize. I thought it was okay to have rounds sitting around, but that's just keeping all that moisture in there, and that's a bad thing. So to really get it to cure, it needs to be split. so that can be exposed to the air. 6 months, like they said, for at least for pine. Harder woods should go a year, sometimes even more. And I do have one more video that talks about that here in a second. Talks about the wood content, or the moisture content of the wood.
One thing on the hardwoods, I know people up here sell cottonwood and aspen. That's technically a hardwood, but it's not a very good wood to burn. So buyer beware, just because it says hardwood, but if it's cottonwood, it's really tough.
Yeah. Why is it not a good wood to burn? Is it the heat output, or?
Well, it's real ashy and it burns really quick, and it just leaves a bunch of ash in there. It's just crap.
Yeah.
And it usually has a much higher moisture content. It takes longer to cure.
Longer to cure, not.
And I think aspen burns bright, but not real hot. And they use, typically wooden matches are made out of aspen because they burn real bright.
Not a lot of heat and a lot of ash.
Not a lot of heat and a lot of ash. Okay. Makes a big mess.
Technically a hardwood.
Yeah.
One thing they kept stressing, and all the things I was seeing on the Burnwise website as well, is to just cover the top of your wood pile. Don't wrap the whole thing. Don't try to keep all the moisture off it, because that's actually holding the moisture in. So just cover the top so snow's not sitting on it, rain's not dropping on top of it, and let the rest have that airflow. So one more video, talk a little bit about moisture content of the wood.
Put another log on the fire. Wait, is it dry in season or full of water? This is a freshly cut 30-pound piece of red oak. Inside this log is 2 gallons of water. That's more than half the weight of the log. When you burn wet wood, the fire is harder to start. It doesn't burn as hot. It creates more smoke, which can harm your health. The fuel's energy is wasted while boiling off the water, and it also produces more creosote, which is a chimney hazard. Check the amount of water in your firewood before you buy or burn. Properly dried wood should have a reading of 20% or less using a moisture meter. You can get one for less than $30. Remember, for the most accurate reading, test newly split wood. If the reading is higher than 20%, the log should be stored longer before burning. To dry in season firewood, split, stack, cover, and store it for at least 6 months for softwoods and a year or more for hardwoods. Dry season firewood starts a fire easily, creates the most heat, burns cleaner, uses less fuel, and is safer for your family. For more tips, go to epa.gov/burnwise.
Anybody have a moisture meter? Yeah?
John, I was thinking maybe this is something the library can purchase and have in our library of things, so people could check out, and maybe we could work on some collaborative, paperwork to go with that talks about the right kind of woods and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's a great. Maybe that would be a good thing to offer
Yeah,
to our
really.
community, so you don't have to make that investment yourself, but check the wood before you get started for the wood.
They're not, I don't think they're terribly expensive.
No.
Yeah, they
I
said
got
this
one for Christmas.
Oh, okay, I got it. It was the best one on the market, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Sure it was. Talk a little bit about maintaining your wood burning appliance, and this for me, as a firefighter, is really one of the key things I want to drive home, is this is really important. Being successful with heating your home with wood is making sure you're doing the maintenance as needed. That's really critical. Anytime we have seen or we've gone to a chimney fire, it's really always related to the maintenance of that chimney and either the lack of it or, so well worth the money, hire a professional certified chimney sweep to clean and inspect. Inspection is key as well, depending on what your chimney is made of. If you have an old masonry chimney, really, really important. Make sure that gets inspected, make sure it's not cracks where those hot gases and smoke can get out. A lot of the older ones, once they get to that point, and this is mostly fireplaces, not so much wood stoves, then you have to line them. You have to put a liner through that chimney to fix it. It's really, you can't really repair it in place, so you just have to put a liner in it. So really, really important to have those inspections as well. And again, when it's installed, make sure you have the right clearances around it, protecting combustible floor if you're putting it on that. You've seen all the ways to do it, and there's a plethora of ways to get a wood stove in the room you want it in. Make sure it's assembled properly. Some of the failures we've seen in fireplace flues can happen, way up in the flue, and it can just be a failure of how it was installed potentially if it was able to leak. Because modern day, a lot of fireplaces are built with the flue, wood structure around it, and veneer stone on the outside. It may look like a big masonry fireplace, probably isn't on most new construction. It's probably framed in, covered with a veneer of stone.
Do you find that most of the fires are fireplace versus wood stovepipes?
I would say typically yes. Most of the issues we have are more fireplace related than wood stove. Typically, if somebody's gone to the trouble of putting a wood stove in, they're intentional about using that to heat their home. They're a little more serious about making sure it's working properly. They know how to work it, hopefully, when they got it. Because obviously, if you're spending money on wood and that's how you're heating, you want to make sure it's as efficient as it can be. That's a lot of effort. You want maximum payback. So typically, yes, it's fireplace related. One of the things they talked about overloading too, I think that's one of the other things we see is people will, oh, it's super cold, so I put lots and lots of, and that can have its effect too if you get too hot. That can have the effect on the flue pipe and other things, so, and create problems. We've seen that as well. And again, some of these newer fireplaces might just be surrounded by wood in that box, so if you overheat everything, you really run that risk. So, and again, they talked about once a year inspection. I would say if you're using it to heat, I would encourage you maybe to do it twice a year. That's kind of your call, but maybe depending on what wood you burn too. If you're burning pine, maybe get it checked more frequently. If you're burning hardwood, that year's probably okay. And it kind of relates to how much you're using it too. If it's just a fireplace and you use it occasionally, that's something different than it's a wood stove and I use it to heat my house. So your maintenance frequency should be somewhat dependent on how you're using your appliance as well.
I think one of the big things around here, because so many people are using pine, is trying to knock the bark off the pine. So when you split around, as an example, most of the time all four wedges will have a back of bark on it, right?
Yeah.
So you can also kind of tell if you're not seasoning your wood properly, you're not able to pull that bark off. So that bark actually has a lot more tar and resin in it than the actual wood does.
And I think it's been my experience too. You kind of mentioned it, how it sticks on when the wood's still pretty wet. It's hard to get it off, but when it's cured, it comes right off. So that's a good tip. Thank you. Anything else on that slide? One thing I like to stress too is a cap on your flue, whichever kind of appliance you're using. Keep weather out of it. Found it really critical if you still have a masonry flue, like in a fireplace, to keep the weather out of it. That water, cold water, snow going into a heated masonry flue can crack it. So you want to protect it, keep the weather out of it. And again, even with metal flue pipe can be subject to moisture and rust and all those other things. We also talk about screening that. So, and again, this is kind of more fireplace related, but making sure that any embers that might get lifted out of there don't fall on your roof, fall on the wildland. So we like to see a screen around that cap as well. And lots of options out there, but really important to keep that weather out. It's also important to us that you look at what's outside of your chimney and your flue at your house. Shouldn't have anything above it as far as tree limbs, tree branches, and we recommend at least 10 feet away from it, from the top of your chimney. Nothing overhanging for sure. And again, there's that annual inspection, all components. Another thing where we tend to see issues is people dealing with cleanup. Again, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but it's important just to reiterate it. Always use metal buckets when you're cleaning out your fireplace or your wood stove. If you still have chunks that didn't burn, soak them before you throw them away. I think back to the last time the YMCA completely lost the structure. It wasn't necessarily fireplace related, but it was hot coals put in the trash can next to a plastic gas line. Started the trash can on fire, melted the gas line, and blowtorch, really, really bad fire, just because somebody put hot product in the trash. So really important. And again, with our tourist economy up here, we have a lot of vacation rentals, short-term rentals, people that aren't maybe used to burning wood. Kind of creates an issue sometimes when you can't blame them on vacation. I'd like to have a fire in the fireplace, the place I'm renting too. But we have seen issues where improper cleaning or disposal of those ashes, because some of the rentals tell their folks that are staying, you have to clean out the fireplace before you go. Is it cooled down yet? You know, if they had a fire till midnight, 1 in the morning, and then they're leaving by 10 the next morning, probably still hot in there. One of the other things I mentioned was the ash pits. We've also seen that where people were putting hot embers in addition to ash in the ash pit. That can create a problem as well. Had one not too long ago that was completely full, clear to the top, and it was a good size, probably almost not quite 6 feet, probably 4 feet deep below the fireplace and full of ash. And it, again, putting hot coals, hot embers in that, and it was smoking up the house. Wasn't really a huge fire hazard, but a big mess. So anyway, interesting. So if you have that ash pit, make sure it gets cleaned out as well on a regular basis. There are creosote sweeping products out there. Not a bad idea to use, but not a replacement for annual inspections and annual chimney sweeping. It's more of a ongoing maintenance thing.
You're talking about the powders you can buy when you
You
throw
can
on
buy
the fire?
powders, you can buy flares.
Yeah, okay. I think they're good to use occasionally, but as long as you're still getting your twice a year chimney sweep to come out.
Yeah, and again, it's just not, it's not a replacement, but it is another option out there. I wouldn't want to tell you to, oh, you can do that and you're fine. You still need to have it inspected and have it professionally cleaned on a regular basis. What's that Ready, Set, Go slide doing in there? Oh. Sorry, it was in the PowerPoint I used to start this one. I thought I'd do one plug for everybody for make sure you're signed up for NOCO alerts. That's how we can get a hold of you in an emergency. If you have visitors, they can just text that number to NOCO and they'll just get it for 2 weeks and then it won't bug them after 2 weeks. So just a reminder. And sorry, I had it hidden and I was like, I'm just gonna throw it. I'm just gonna throw it in there. So here's my summary. So we're right at a half hour. Wood burning obviously can be a viable alternative to heat. I think hopefully what you've gathered today, and hope some of you may have already known it, but the more efficiently you can get your appliance to burn, the more money you're gonna save by using that appliance. So it should be in your best interest. Make sure you have cured wood, again, below 20% moisture content. Use your airflow correctly for your appliance. Make sure it's working at its maximum efficiency. So again, follow your directions, I guess, of how your appliance is supposed to work. So really, I mean, it's up to those that are burning wood to do their best to try to reduce the smoke output from that. I know there's been some concerns about smoke output from fireplaces, smoke output from pile burning around the area. It's all, I mean, we live in the mountains. At some point, you know, people are gonna burn wood, and pile burning for me is a great thing to be happening. That helps reduce the fuels in our forests that surround us. So all good things, but where you have an opportunity in your home to use wood and to do it efficiently and try to reduce that smoke output. That's kind of what we're talking about today. Use your appliance efficiently to put out the least smoke possible and get the most heat out of it. I thought that was a great correlation between the amount of heat it's producing and the amount of smoke it's producing. Less smoke means you're getting more heat out of it. So that should be incentive right there to make sure you're using it properly. Again, EPA Burnwise, got great information on there. I got all of this from there. So, good stuff. If you need to get a hold of us over at the fire station, you can use prevention, estes-valleyfire.org. I also have these if you want to take one with you. You also got it in your electric bill, I just found out. But I'll throw them out there if anybody wants. That's a good summary from Burnwise. We pretty much covered everything on there today. Good information to have. Any questions?
John, can high winds prevent proper venting of your chimney and kind of force the smoke back into the house?
Potentially. We've seen that, we've had that with certain weather events, and not necessarily just high winds. It can be a temperature inversion too. And that kind of goes back to how you're operating the appliance and making sure that that flue is nice and hot, so you keep that draw going out of the house. One of the things I've seen a lot with fireplaces, people not knowing how to build a fireplace, they'll build it near the front of the firebox because they're doing it for aesthetics more than they are for heating. And that can have an effect on how that flue is heated. So I've always told people, build your fire to the back of the firebox. That'll help heat that flue up and keep everything going out. Occasionally, it depends on where you're at, what kind of wind, it can create issues. And I have seen people that, in some of the fireplaces I had to deal with in my past, use like it's A-frame chimney cap, so it wasn't just a flat chimney cap. It has it has the one coming up and then two on the sides. That kind of helps with the wind, and they do have some other caps that are supposed to do better in the wind. So there are some options if you know your appliance struggles with that, and if you're in a particularly windy area like we all are, but some areas are even more particularly windy than others in Estes Valley. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
So the more you have your damper turned down, so the less oxygen that we're talking about wood stoves here, less oxygen, the more creosote, right? And so in the video, they said that once you get your wood stove up to temp, you can turn the damper down.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely correct. Your wood will burn longer, but it'll also create more creosote.
Yeah.
So we've been told that the optimal thing is to leave your damper all the way open all the time. You'll burn more, your wood will burn faster, but it'll also burn hotter,
Right.
and it'll create less creosote. So there's kind of that advantage, disadvantage thing. So I tend to leave mine kind of in the middle, keep
Yeah.
an eye on it. The first year we got ours up here, I was, I'd go to put the fire out and I just crank that damper all the way down because the fire goes out faster that way.
Right.
Right, but it also creates a lot of creosote, so.
Our
just
first
something
chimney
to-
sweep wasn't pretty.
Something to be aware of.
Yeah.
That's a great tip, and I think that goes back to knowing your appliance and knowing
Yeah.
how it works, knowing the wood you're using, and again, maximizing your return on that investment. So thanks for that, that's a great tip. And that is a good way to judge, I think, how your appliance is burning is what your chimney sweep tells you when they come to maintain it, how it looks and how dirty it is. And,
The other
use
thing I
that
wasn't
in-
doing was I was cleaning out the ash every time I had a fire, right? Cause I thought, that's just what you do.
Yeah.
And he came in and he said, no, you should always have 1 or 2 inches on the bottom of the thing, because that actually, when you have ash in the bottom, it creates less creosote as well, so.
All good tips, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
And
Other comments, questions?
I have an ongoing argument with my chimney sweep all the time, and he's one of the proponents of burn it, leave the draft open all the time, burn it hot as whatever. And so I did that last year somewhat, tried to see whether it'd make a difference, and of course the wood burns up faster, so every hour you're throwing something in there. And when he came to clean my chimney last time, he said it was the dirtiest it's ever been. So I just kinda, and he talks about, now this stove that I have, it does not have a 4-inch ash pan in the bottom. And he says you need 4 inches worth of ashes. It's like, well, the base of the wood box is kind of level with the air vent. And it's a type of air vent that it actually comes in, there's a plate in the top, it actually comes in and goes this way before it goes up the chimney. And you can actually see with the airflow, it helps keep the glass on the door clean. It's one of their proponents, although it collects over here. But if I leave, well, number one, I don't think it'll hold 4 inches of ash, because there's not, it would be 2 inches up above the door opening. So I don't think it's meant to be that. I'm gonna call Buck one of these days and say, okay, tell me what your idea is, because I know from experience how it seems to work best. And so the other thing is when I get up to about 2 inches of ash, yeah, it holds coals, but because I don't get up and put wood in it and feed it at night, those coals really are not worth, they're hardly there in the morning. He said, well, then, you never need anything to start a fire, you just put wood in. Well, I don't have any big advantage there with the ash. And it seems like the more ash there is when I put wood in it, it's harder for the logs to catch on the coals, unless I've really got the bed up above that. And it just kind of smothers the fire out and smothers the coals out. So I kind of try to do halfway in between. But one thing on cleaning it, what I do is the bigger chunks that you don't want to go in, they may look out, and you put them in an ash can, and of course you expose them out to the air and they'll turn orange and whatever. But I finally found a metal kitty litter scoop. And so what I do then is I push everything to one side and I scoop all that, and anything that doesn't fall through I throw back in the corner and leave in the stove and put only ash in my ash can. And so I don't have too much, and then I let that sit. You probably don't want to hear this. I let that sit several weeks, and then I double bag it in tall kitchen trash bags, and then leave it sit outside on cement that way for another month or so, and then before I will put it in the trash. But it's worked well for me for years.
All good tips. And again, it just goes back to knowing your appliance, and there's so many out there.
Yeah.
So knowing how yours works and how it works best. Brian?
On your investigation of the website, was there any grants for to get a newer wood burner? I know mine's way before that date.
I didn't come across anything grant related that jumped out at me. I'm not saying it's not there, but I wasn't really looking for that.
We want to check with the county, because a lot of municipalities have done that, basically offering an incentive to switch it out. It was one of the options that we gave to the board when they asked us to bring some ideas forward to deal with nuisance smoke. So the county might actually have something. I'm not sure, I haven't investigated, but it's worth looking.
Yeah. My kid brother, he's got one, but he dropped like $4,000 on it.
Yeah.
He's in gunning, so totally different climate, but his is so efficient. He goes through a third of what I go through. Just wondering.
Yeah, I had their website pulled up.
Let's go get a family man.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll look deeper into it, but I guess it doesn't matter to me, the town gives us incentive to.
Nope, I'm technologically challenged, I guess.
Hey, can I ask everybody here, I don't burn, but I got nothing against it. Do you think wood smoke is a greenhouse gas? Just curious, your opinion. Like, do you think it contributes to like global warming, or, cause I don't.
Well, I don't know if it's technically a greenhouse gas, the particles within it might be
Yeah, it's-
considered a greenhouse gas or contributing to the degradation of the ozone, but.
Yeah, it seems like more of like a natural smoke that occurs anyway in forest fires. Somehow it's like recycled back into the environment better.
I mean, there's definitely a carbon offset. with
It
right?
depends on the
Yeah,
efficiency of the
Okay.
burn.
You would call it a carbon offset.
And I think it's a lot less now than it's been
research, if you do burn wood correctly, it's as clean as natural gas.
But that's it, it's the efficiency of burn,
Yeah.
it all goes back to that.
That's key to the
If
efficiency
you're
and the
putting
craft
out
of
what
it.
they're,
That's-
I hadn't heard the term before, I guess it's like opaque smoke. If you can see the smoke, then that's
Yeah.
particulate matter.
I did read
And
that
so
on
it is a
Burnwise.
pollutant, I don't know that it's greenhouse gas, it'd have to be methane in it, which I don't think we're producing, but, yeah,
That's
so
pretty
if you're doing a clean burn and you're not seeing smoke come out, then I'd say, you know, there's definitely less pollution.
Yeah, that's one thing I did see on Burnwise, is just occasionally go out and take a look what you're putting out.
Yeah.
That's a good gauge of everything.
Yeah, that was another thing, my chimney sweep lives near me, and one time he asked me, he says, do you even use your wood stove? And he should have known from looking at it, you know, that, yeah. And I said, yeah, every day, and he said, well, I drive by and I never see any smoke coming out of your chimney.
That's true,
And
that's
I'm
what I
like-
noticed. It's just occasionally
That's the way it's supposed to be.
That startup.
Yeah,
It's
that
a startup, yeah.
Just, or somebody doesn't maintain it, or has an old unit.
Mhm.
I live in the old neighborhood over there, and there's a couple back there, just, ooh, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, it's like living by a tugboat,
Probably the moisture of the wood.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Burnwise website talks a lot about fine particles as the pollutant. I didn't pick up on anything calling it greenhouse gas, but there is tons of links out there on that Burnwise website. They'll take you to other EPA sites talking about air quality.
And, like I said, I don't burn, but I'm not concerned about people who burn efficiently.
Yeah.
When I'm burning tires, it's pretty dark.
And I didn't, back to, some of the work that's going on around our valley, and pile burning in the forest and is going on, and the park's doing some too, and that's all a good thing. I'd much rather see controlled pile burning done than a catastrophic fire like we saw with Cameron Peak or East Troublesome that's burning everything. I think there's a lot more bad things coming out of that than there is on doing it at a smaller scale to help prevent those catastrophic fires.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just share one more tip, and this is
Okay.
from experience, right? So when you're buying firewood in the fall, say, September, October, November, typically what you're getting is recently cut, right? But you need it to burn through the winter, so it's gonna have a higher moisture content.
Yeah.
If you're buying later in the spring, right, then there's no reason to burn it, so it's going to season naturally, right?
Yep.
So I think that when consumers are buying their firewood, if they try to buy it in the spring, that way it'll be ready to burn by the fall versus the other way around.
Yeah, great
And
tip.
stacking has a lot to do with it too, right? If you stack it too tight, it's
Airflow.
not gonna season properly.
And I think our climate, where we live, I would even argue probably 3-4 months, good split pine is cured. Here, like I'm from Wisconsin.
point, right.
It'd take 3-4 years before some of that stuff was cured because of the.
Because of the
moisture
RH,
content
yeah.
Of the environment, but out here it dries much more quickly. And the size of your split too. If you're half split, then it's gonna take longer, but if you're quarter to even six, then it's gonna dry really quick.
One thing I know is on one of my bullet points in the slides, but I'm not sure I said it out loud, is make sure your stacks of wood are at least 30 feet or more away from your house. As a fire prevention person, we like to see that. We spend a lot of time when we have these big fires doing structure prep, moving people's firewood away from their house to try to save their house. So you should just be thinking that way right off the bat. If you're gonna build a wood stack, do it at least 30 feet away from your house. We went in that 30 to 100 foot zone, not closer. So,
Excellent.
thanks for reminding me, because I don't think I said that out loud. I had it up there, I think, but I missed that when I was talking to
Piles
you.
of firewood we had to move during Cameron.
Oh, I can't even imagine. In our neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're chucking wood.
And we don't
Because everybody
restack
wants
it.
under their eaves.
Yeah.
It goes everywhere and we don't restack it, so.
You're not putting it back?
Put it
What?
It will be a mess. but-
Our boys did that for a lot of our neighbors for a couple bucks after Cameron Peak.
That's a good idea.
So we'll restack your wood that my dad just threw.
Ours is 30, that's 30 feet,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
easy, yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Right.
I only said so.
Okay.
that time.
Thank you, John.
Anything else?
Thank you.
And John,
Yeah.
probably a basic question, what should you expect from a chimney sweep? I mean, do they do maintenance, or they just clear the flue, or will they put that 1/2-inch mesh around your fireplace?
Most of them should. Again, I haven't personally hired one. Probably some other people in here that have, recently. Some of them will do that maintenance and be able to also repair anything, any problems with the flue.
I
It
used
depends on.
MCC chimney sweep, and when we had the, wood stove installed, they did the, stovepipe up through the ceiling, through the attic, and through the roof.
Yeah.
And he came in and he said, you know what, with the wind here, you should probably have stabilizers attached to the wood stove pipe as it comes out of the roof, so it doesn't bend in the wind.
Yeah.
So he did that, and they'll replace the screens and meshes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they should be able to get a cap for it. They should be able to do the mesh. You made me think of something else that I didn't put in the slideshow, but, and you were talking about the wind effect on your flue. Also keep in mind, especially if you have a metal roof, snow can also damage your flue, coming up through the roof. Not necessarily wood stove related, but that was one of my constant battles with the events complex here when I was facilities manager for the town. The big snow would start sliding down that metal roof and just shear off the vent pipes. So it's something to keep in mind with your property. Make sure that snow doesn't have that ability to do that. Usually it's just metal roof related, not asphalt. And hopefully nobody has wood shake shingles. Shingles.
Kindling.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you're heating with wood, you don't wanna heat with that kind of wood, so.
When we were in London recently, we kept taking pictures of the thatched
Okay.
roofs. I mean, they're beautiful, but just living
Yeah.
here, it just makes you laugh, like,
Yeah.
how could anybody do that? But they don't have that problem there.
Any other questions? Thanks for coming, thanks for making it interactive, I appreciate the input. Like I said, I printed out some of those Burnwise summary pages. Also have Fire District's annual report, if anybody missed out on that and they wanna take a hard copy, feel free to do that. It's also available on our website at ssvalleyfire.org. Plethora of information there as well. Okay?
Thank you, John.
Right,
John.
thank you.